Hello, welcome. My name's Rob Stevens. I'm the Operations Director for Optic Solutions. Joining me today, I've got Ben Williams from Find Your Ed Coaching. And for those of you who don't know Ben's had quite a life of extremes, basically starting out in his early teens, took some wrong decisions and ended up getting involved with drugs and alcohol. But latterly, he's really turned his life around. He's done some really amazing things. He's been a Royal Marine, and more recently, he's become a professional coach, and he's been working with England men's football team and Gareth Southgate to help them with their attitude and mindset. And now, Ben, I understand that you're working as a professional coach all over the world. So welcome to Optics TV.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be on. It's brilliant. It's humbling to be even asked to come on and speak about the journey. So I'm definitely looking forward to sharing it with you. Very much so.
Cool. Great stuff. So, there's such a lot to talk about with you. And I know we spoke briefly beforehand, and you've got a real affinity with mental health and also helping positivity towards those who want to open up and talk around kind of their mental health or problems that they may have had with anxiety and depression and those sort of things. But your specific focus now is in mindset, I believe, and helping businesses kind of understand the power of mindset and what that can do to unlock their potential. So do you want to talk to us just a little bit about kind of where that came about and how you kind of got that skill set?
Yeah, I suppose it started in the Royal Marines. I remember being a young recruit looking at my own training team and being within the training environment thinking, as a wide-eyed recruit, I'd love to be a Royal Marines instructor one day. I think it sort of epitomizes the elite standard of what we do is to be able to coach that and make that happen for other people. After years of serving my time in the Royal Marines and doing what I needed to do, did my leadership qualifications and passed the relevant courses, did my coaching courses, and then I found myself working with recruits, and it was a really, really awesome time. And I didn't see it at the time. I was actually concentrating on my next part of my career that I actually wanted to do while still being at Lympstone training the recruits, and coaching wasn't my focal point. It was making these recruits become Royal Marines. That was what I was doing. And I was focusing on other things at the time. And I just really enjoyed being in that environment and seeing people go from one thing to another and go on this journey. And I remember my corporal in training saying to me, there's no prouder feeling than passing out your own recruits. Yeah. And it happened. And I had, passed out several recruit troops, and it was really enjoyable. And I worked with rehabilitation troops, so I got to see that other side of it and how to help people when they're injured, and then also professional failures as well. So I worked within one of the troops which helped with people which just couldn't grasp necessarily how to do certain things such as map reading and things like that. So I sort of went around all of it and really enjoyed just doing it. And I never saw myself as a coach. I was just an instructor who liked training recruits and
just doing your job, I guess.
Yeah, exactly that. And there was a passion, and I didn't really see it as a passion. I didn't know it was there. And then my career was coming to an end because of a hearing issue, which I sustained in Afghanistan. And then I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was at that time that England visited the training camp back in 2017 to do this surprise weekend for the players.
Yeah, they did really well in that campaign, didn't they? If I remember, they was it semi-finals they went through to?
Yeah, they did, and I think more the reason that we didn't get a bit further or didn't get into the finals was fatigue. You could see it within the players that they were actually, more than anything, they were fatigued, and it's not at all that they didn't want it or anything like that. The guys were physically really tired, so. To be part of that journey anyway was really awesome, to say the least. I was with the team the day they were flying out to Russia. We went up to St. George's Park and we sat around for a few hours, final little last words of wisdom and then off they go. And, don't get me wrong, had they won the World Cup, I would have been like, it was all us. Yeah. It was all us. And they didn't win the World Cup. So
that was 100% my coaching.
Yeah, that was all me. And obviously they didn't win, and we were like, well, they didn't listen to what we said.
But the attitude was bang on, though.
Exactly. And in fact, that evening they were playing, who was it? I think it was Croatia or someone like that. And obviously they got knocked out. I got a phone call saying if they win this game, we need you and a couple of other lads which are on that training team. You're going to be with Piers Morgan tomorrow morning talking about what you've done with them. So we were like, right, lads, you got to win now.
Yeah.
And then when they lost, I was like,
yeah, your country needs you.
Yeah, you got to do it. You got to do it. But yeah, it was just a really great experience. And for me, it was where I knew my career was ending, and then it was married up almost in parallel to working with recruits that I worked with England, and thought, oh, I actually like doing this. Like, I like helping people maybe unlock a little bit more further potential. And that's something I really harp on about. It's like, unlocking potential does not mean you have not unlocked your potential. You know, increasing your performance doesn't mean you're in a poor state. It means you can go from great to incredible. You know, that's the way I look at it. And harnessing your abilities. So yeah, that was it really. As soon as that happened, I was like, well, I'm going to set up something and begin my transition. So that's where it originally began. That's definitely where it originally began.
And there's so, I mean, we could literally spend the next sort of like 30, 40 minutes talking just about that one part of your kind of career, right? I mean, it's such a huge thing. And, you know, I one of the things, though, you know, we've got to keep on topic, right? So we're here to talk about mental health and Mental Health Awareness Week. And, you know, talking about your marine mindset and why that's become so special. I mean, this is something which, you know, again, you spoke to the England camp about, but it's something which you're now bringing to business. So what's so special about that marine mindset then? What is it that kind of sets it apart?
Well, we all have it. This is, for me, is we all have this commando mindset way of thinking. You just call it something else. You will name it something else within your own life, within your own career. Everyone has this ability to think, I suppose, how we think. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean, we think in a particular way because of certain types of training we do, also the ethos that we have, the set of values, our leadership, and everything that's brought out of us to show us who we are. And along the way of training, you kind of understand that you can always push yourself a little bit further. You've always got that extra 10, 20% in the tank, whether that's physical or mental, it's always there. And owning such a mindset is the ability to tap into that and ensure that you can have that self-belief to say, yeah, I can keep going. No matter what it is you are trying to achieve, I can keep going. And that's the way Anthony and I, so Anthony, my business partner, and I really look at it within our business, is that we're just showing people things that they already have. And sometimes it's a degree of belief that people need to increase in order to take the steps forward to what they want to achieve. In our world, it's called the commando mindset. You know, in a parent's world, it might be a parenting mindset. In accounting, it might be an accountant's mindset, you know, sport mindset, elite mindset. So it's just something that the commando is just attached to mindset, but it's our particular way of thinking that it helps us achieve what we need to achieve. And in its simplest form, it's working in, you know, high tempo, stressful environments, the ability to be resilient and endure, and also understand ourselves as well, our own capabilities, and being good at what we do. So yeah, it's that's human behavior. Just, and we just wear green and have guns and run around battlefields. But take that away, it's just we're human beings who think in a particular way. So that's what we do. We're taking elements of that to help people harness their own potential. Yeah,
cool. And your business now then, so how are you helping people sort of unlock this in a business environment? Like, is there a process or like a methodology that people can follow?
There's several things we sort of engage in, and one of them is that word engage. So helping businesses actually engage their employees. And I think it's now more than ever, we live in a time where there is, you know, your generations are quite clearly there, and we talk about millennials, and we talk about snowflakes, and we talk about the elder generation, seniors. I think right now there's 4 generations still just about working in the workplace together, with this huge expanse of history of time between them all. And so it's one of the things we really help do is how can we help leaders within businesses engage their employees more, and especially those from the sort of more millennial Gen Z ilk, to tap into. And it doesn't really go, you don't have to look far or anywhere on the internet or anything like that to understand that millennials and Gen Z, they really they want something more from things, and they like to do things for a purpose rather than necessarily just do it as a job. You know, they're not so financially driven. They think very differently, and we've kind of slotted in as this bridge between 2 different groups to help leaders understand what the millennials and Gen Z want to do, but also get Gen Z and millennials to understand what leadership groups go through and people who are in more senior positions go through to how they have to work. And so where we're working at the moment, a number of places, is this engage type programming where we're tapping into what the people of the business really like. So, and that's not a work thing, that's their life. You know, what drives them? What is their intrinsic motivations? You know, is it a goal? Do they come to work for parenting reasons? People come to work for all different types of reasons. And when our belief is, if businesses understood this more about their own people, and not just the leaders, but also those side by side one another, and understand the real reason people are coming to work, you know that person differently, which means you are more accountable to them. You work for them differently. And that's where you create good teams. That's where you create good organizations, because you're there for one another. And don't get me wrong, you know, this doesn't work in 100% format. You know, there are people within your organization you will openly dislike, you know, and you might not say it, but, you know, I don't like that person. But that doesn't mean you can't increase the percentage of just about how many more people get on and what they do know, you know, knowing the dog's name of your person you work with, you know, what their kids' names, what's the real reason they come in for, what truly drives them. And so that's where we find we fit in best at the moment. And so, I suppose one of the strategies we use at the moment is called the ICE model, which we came up with within our own group. And it's the sort of lead model within my book, which comes out next January. And it's so simple. And we came across it completely off the cuff, you know, just years ago, doing our first workshop happened to be for a Volkswagen group, and we were like, wow, well, we landed this, what do we do? What do we say to them the next day?
Gotta get some content quick.
Let's make some stuff up. And we just wrote ICE on a bit of paper, and it originally stood as inspiration, courage, execution. And we delivered it. And then I remember one of the directors who sat in was like, hi guys, I love that ICE thing. Do you think execution's a bit much? And we're like, yeah, it is a bit much.
Engage.
Yeah, like 2 Marines stood out front, like execution, like, yeah, it does sound bad. So then we just went straight to the thesaurus and like plugged it in, and it came up with enactment, and we were like, okay. And the more we sort of sat around looking at this model, we were like, actually, you know, red wine was the original help to get this going. And then when we sat back and looked at it and started working through it, we're like, this is actually a real thing. So inspiration for us is that internal reason for doing something. It comes from the battlefield from me. You know, the inspiration at the time was the people left and right at me. It wasn't the government. It wasn't Queen and Country. None of that counts when bullets are coming at you. It's who's there, how can I protect them? That's my inspiration there and then. But before that, you know, I wanted to become a Royal Marines Commando, so I needed to ditch the life I was living, which was drugs. And so my inspiration was to get clean and then start this new journey in my life. And then you get to the gates of Lympstone as a clean person who's fitish, ready to take on 32 weeks of training. Then the inspiration changes to earning the Green Beret. And then when you earn the Green Beret, then it's about upholding the values and then doing your job. And then these inspirations changed along the way. And, you know, now more than ever, they're my children.
Yeah.
But for me, the inspiration is your reason for doing things. And when you know what that reason is, or reasons, it goes on to the next part of the model, which is courage. And courage stems from belief, self-belief, the belief in yourself that you can actually achieve something. And also it's powered by that inspiration, the reason why you're doing what you're doing. I always use this hypothetical reason of We're stood at the side of a really cold, frozen lake. You can get in the lake. There's bits of ice all over it. It's raining. The wind's howling. We're up high in altitude. It's just a horrible, horrible environment to be in right now. And I'm going to say, okay, strip down to your nicks, your bra, your pants, and in you get and swim. And most people will go, no. And other people will go, why? And then there'll be that question and reasoning, why should I get in there? And it would be a challenge for me to convince you to get in the water. And there's always that bold person who's like straight in. Change it though, and I'm not at that shoreline, and you're walking by that same lake, same environment, same conditions, and in the middle of that lake is someone you know, or a person struggling to swim. You'd be straight in there to try and save them. And so it's not the challenge, it's not the hurdle, it's not the lake that's the problem, it's the reason for doing it. And this is where I feel a lot of people misinterpret where they want to go in life with their goals and stuff like that. They have the wrong reason for doing it. And so that then can hinder and knock your belief and your courage. You know, we step out the door as parents to go into the fray, I suppose you can call the world, especially during such economical times, to ensure that we can come back and continue to sustain our families and make sure that they live. You know, that's one key inspiration at home that drives us forward, gives us courage, gives us belief. And then the E is enactment, you know, taking the steps. I always say it, Nike built a brand off the words, just do it. And that's sometimes what we fail to do, is just do it. You know, it just takes one step in front of the other to then start running a marathon. But it's the actual getting to the start line for people that's very difficult. And it's such a simple formula. And it all came about from a military course I was on. And I was on a big hill in the middle of the fog, where I could see 50 meters that way, and behind me, nothing. And I was tired. I had a big weight on my back. And I think we were 20 kilometers in. No one was around. It was an individual march. And this was the 7th one of the week. And I remember just like leaning over, saying, I can't be bothered, I give up. And someone came up next to me out of the blue, like breathing, bent over as well themselves, like, I give up. And we were swearing and saying how rubbish the course was. And then he went into his pocket and he pulled something out. He looked at it, put it away. And he didn't scream off. He didn't go flying off. He just started plodding. And he was plodding more than me, and he was moving, and then he disappeared from sight. I was like, I wonder what he's taken. And then I saw him in the pub that night, where you sensibly rehydrate him. And I just pulled him aside. I was like, I didn't know him at all. So, sorry, mate, I was on the hill with you earlier. Can I ask you, what were you doing earlier? What was that thing you looked at? And he pulled it out of his pocket then on the spot. And it was a laminated picture of his daughter. And then he flipped it over. It was a Range Rover in a beach holiday.
Yeah.
I was like, what's this? And he went, that's my inspiration. So when I'm at rock bottom, I have that reminder to push me forward. And that for me, like over sort of months and then years later, reflecting on it, was like, that's so powerful. Like he had that thing to remind him right at that last minute when he was tired to push forward, keep going.
Yeah.
More than I had on the spot. And for him to coin it as his inspiration, I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. And so we work with people to help unlock these. A lot of us have things we want to achieve in life, no matter how young, no matter how old we are. Everyone has that extra thing they want to achieve. But there's always things that hold us back from doing it. You know, you speak to a lot of people at the moment during COVID-19, and there's a lot of, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. I wish I did this. You know, why does it take a global pandemic for you to regret not doing what you wanted to originally do in the first place? And so we spend a lot of time working with people one-on-one, spend a lot of time with groups of people, not so much now, engaging employees back into businesses by understanding what truly drives them and making them feel like they belong to a business rather than just are there to turn the cogs. We are all cogs in big machines at the end of the day, but if you can remind yourself of how much of a great efficient cog you are and that you're a worthy cog, then it feels good to be in that machine. And retention at the moment is not easy, and it's quite commonly known millennials seem to walk away a little bit more from businesses, and I don't think you'll ever be able to stop that. And so what we speak to leaders about now is saying, imagine being a business where you're incredibly difficult to leave. You know, you don't want to pack up your desk. You don't want to leave behind the people. You don't want to leave the building, but you know you have to move off. Yeah. And that person becomes a flag bearer for your company many, many years, saying how great you are. They're going to leave because they need to career progress. But what do they say when they leave? And so this is this whole engagement about how much do businesses know their people? What do they do for them to bring out more? How do you you buy into what these people are actually driven by, so they feel like they belong, rather than walking around away from the business going, I'm glad that's over. And so that's predominantly what we spend a lot of time doing at the moment. It's very rewarding, very rewarding.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's so many things in there. There's some great pieces of advice. So, I just wanted to say thank you very much, for sharing your advice with us. And you also dropped in there sort of very, very briefly, but about a book as well. So coming out in January, is that?
Yes. So it was meant to come out yesterday. But there's worse things happening in the world right now than my book not coming out. But yeah, it was due for release yesterday, Commando Mindset, which is quite like, I talk to people about trying to find their edge and just believing in yourself to go and do something. And I remember I read Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. I originally read Why, start with Why, and then read Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah, great books.
Great books. And I was thinking, wow, he's, listened to one and read the other. I think I listened to Leaders Eat Last, and I thought, this guy can really articulate himself, and he's talking about an incident in Afghanistan. And I thought, I've been there, and I really like what this guy's saying. And I definitely I was brought into the personal development world at that point, and I was still serving, and I thought, this is interesting stuff. And I just started tapping away. I wrote a 120,000 word manuscript to literally, it got thrown in the bin. I had 92 rejections from publishers and agents. I couldn't do it. And then I pretty much chucked it in the bin, as you can say. 2 years later, I managed to secure an agent, because I read J.K. Rowling's story where she just couldn't make it, but kept going.
Nobody wanted to know her, did they?
No, not at all. And I really sort of admired her resilience and her tenacity. And I thought, I'm going to pick it back up again. I started jotting away, and the whole old manuscript was gone, but it was a good learning curve, a long learning curve, but good learning curve. I finally secured an agent, and all of a sudden it picked up traction, and I had 5 publishers wanting it, and one of them was Penguin Business, who ironically, the editor was Simon Sinek's editor. And I just thought, wow, what a sort of way to come around, to be inspired by this person, and the hardest industry to get into, you suddenly get into it, and it's the person's editor who inspired you, who is part of the book. And again, so for me, writing the book it was a nice achievement for me, but I feel like I've kind of written it now to help other people go, I can do what I set my mind to do, as in you. And that's how we should think. So yeah, that's out January the 7th next year, 2021. God bless COVID for coming along and shoving that one a bit further, right? But something to look forward to, I suppose, in the meantime. But that book is predominantly written for the personal development world, for people to hopefully take something from it and find something within their life extra they want to achieve. Yeah.
And it's something which, when I first sort of kind of connected with you, and we shared a bit of our backgrounds and things, and there was some sort of similarities there, which was interesting to sort of, to go through that. But that, that's not what we're here for today. But I think one of the reasons for me personally reaching out to you was that I felt you could add real value to our business and to our teams. A lot of what you've talked about today, I personally, really, I've seen the power of it working with great teams, and how people, when they find that connection, can go on and do, some extraordinary and brilliant things. And I know, you've been very kind in offering to come and help coach some of the team. So if, there was another sort of business leader out there, particularly in the Southwest, because you're based just up the road, aren't you, right? You're Exeter?
I am Exeter. I live just near the airport.
Right, cool,
okay. Yeah, so I am very near. Although there's not much activity at the airport at the moment. It's very quiet. Very quiet.
If other sort of business leaders are looking to sort of have a similar sort of engagement program or kind of like attitude training, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way for people to find you?
So the best way is through the website. So www.findyouredgecoaching.com. That's where you'll find us. We're quite active on social media, but we don't do too much business on social media. It's very much just doing our thing on social media. And like we were saying offline, is actually, I live in Exeter, and but I don't work in Exeter. My nearest job's 92 miles away. And I think like we discussed, is we've done that for a reason, to sort of prove our concepts and actually prove what we talk about we can do ourselves, and that is that you can do what you want. Last year I was sat in one of the big global banks boardrooms with a load of senior directors with a tie on, which wasn't something I was very used to, feeling very out of place, and actually close to the sort of fear lines that I used to feel on the battlefield, which was, I feel like a sore thumb here. I feel like I stick out. They know I'm an intruder, and why would they give us this work? And we had this sort of vision to work with the big companies, to show that you can work with the big companies and they're not locked doors. I remember it came about, the reason that came about was because someone said, you'll never get into that business. You say that to a Marine, they'll find every single thing to get into that business. And that's what we did. And it wasn't to prove a point in a sense of ego. It's to prove a point that, no, that's not right. That's not how we should conduct our support around people. If you have a vision, that's difficult to get in. That's what you say. It's difficult to get in, but you can. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. It's a famous old saying. So that's what we did, and we went away and we're about to start work with 3. So we worked with 2 global banks. We're about to work with the 3rd. Major car manufacturers, as I mentioned. England, the sports teams. We've worked in construction groups, and our real sort of ethos is that you don't work with the organisation or the field. You work with the people, because there's people. People are different throughout different specs and different abilities and fields that they work in, but we're all people. And if you can find a way to work out how people tick and what they really, really want and what really drives them, then that's all that really matters. And I think that really brings on to that point of what we were talking around mental health. Is our main focus is what we do within our work encourages mental fitness. People take health and fitness very seriously. Think of fitness, you think of diets, you think of the gym, you think of running, weights, clean, you think of nice bodies. Of course you do. That's the mind skips to that. When you think of mental health, you think of drugs, taboo, suicide, the darker side, depression, anxiety. And really it shouldn't be like that. It's mental health is maybe towards like the end line where you don't want to be within mental health, but between there and everywhere else is mental fitness. And we should train our bodies, we should train our minds like we train our bodies. And I know that from personal experience of spending a year and a half after Afghan, almost falling back into the old way of life I was, which before the Marines, using drink and violence as an escape for my problems, where it wasn't an escape, it was an excuse. And the first book I ever read was given to me by a pal. I'd been in and out of therapists. I'd done the, post-traumatic stress drugs and all that type of stuff, and it wasn't working. I was almost rebelling against it. And someone gave me a book, a very close friend gave me The Chimp Paradox. And I read that one as well. I read the first chapter and I was like, wow, this Steve Peters has written this book directly to me. And I was engrossed. I got halfway through and I thought, this is getting a bit different for me. It kind of went off the beaten track for me, but it gave me a nudge. That's the biggest thing. It gave me a golden nugget and a nudge for me to walk away and go, maybe there's more in this. So, I really did think the personal development world, the Tony Robbins fans are all just tree huggers. I thought that's what they were. And it was a very cliche sort of field to sort of step into.
Yeah, and then, it's just kind of snake oil salesman.
That's like jumping in and out of cold baths and doing yoga. And I was like, is that for me? But all of a sudden, I had that first book and then the next few books and audio books and YouTube, and just I started to surround myself with the correct knowledge. I always talk about surround yourself with excellence, and that means surrounding yourself with people who can bring the best out of you. And that's not just in physical presence, that's in everything online, and in books as well. And all of a sudden my life started to change when I started to invest in myself differently. And I realized, right, this is what mental fitness is. This is, I'm feeding my brain with the correct information so it can grow, so it can flourish. So, that's where I sort of come at it from that angle. Definitely.
I mean, the term mental fitness was, like I said, we had a chat, didn't we, kind of last week, and that point in your life, I was similar to you, I think, in my kind of like late teens, I've made a lot of bad choices, and but at some point I started making the right choices, and that sort of one of the key moments was just that decision, within myself to sort of turn my life around and realize that I wanted to kind of actually enjoy my own life and to aspire to other things, and so that mental fitness journey, I was not at a point where I understood kind of the concept or what was kind of working for me, but I knew things were working. But I think now, reflecting back, I can really connect with that mental fitness about, you said, surrounding yourself with excellence. But, for me, it was about not surrounding myself with people who were, probably, doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Right. So, I made a conscious decision to step out of that lifestyle and to sort of take myself and my own life much more seriously. And it's been a really great journey ever since, and that's what I enjoyed about talking to you and hearing, like I said, there's probably a lot more that we could have covered today, but we're very limited on time. But it's just, I just wanted to say, from myself to you, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I think we're pretty much done for time, but before we sort of sign off, is there any sort of final words of wisdom that you wanted to share with people?
Wisdom. Final words of wisdom I'll make relevant to what's going on right now, I suppose, is that as horrible as everything is right now, it is strangely an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to reflect on what we've been taking too seriously that didn't need taken too seriously before all this. And I believe that during this period we found out what matters most to us. And I think we should take that forward. And what matters most to us isn't just the people around us and spending time with families, it's ourselves. We've probably all found a little bit of time to take the foot off the gas and enjoy just a slightly smoother pace of life.
Yeah.
And the reason self-development is called self-development is that word at the beginning, self, be selfish. Understand that after the pandemic and we do return to normality, which it will inevitably come back around, that you must still give yourself time. You are the 100% in control of yourself, and everything else you have slight control over. So give yourself that time. Be selfish. Have those 2 hours a week walking on your own in the hills or reading that book, and remind yourself of this period in time that we've been through. Maybe the regrets we took into it beforehand. I wish I did this. I wish I did that. And live a little. I think that this is a breath of fresh air in a really, really strange way. We can't look at it as just adversity. And I love this. I love the saying Benjamin Franklin said, which I keep saying for him. I'm using it for him. With great adversity comes great opportunity. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So that's my final words, I suppose.
Excellent. Okay, Ben. So thank you very much. Like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you today. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.